A research assistant randomly selected 75 undergraduate students from the list of all students enrolled in the psychology degree program at a large university. She asked each of the 75 students, how many minutes per day do you typically spend reading? The mean reading time in the sample was 89 minutes, and the margin of error for this estimate was 4.28 minutes. Another research assistant intends to replicate the survey and will attempt to get a smaller margin of error. Which of the following samples will most likely result in a smaller margin of error for the estimated mean time students in the psychology degree program read per day? So, a statistics question here. We have to pick the sample that will give us the smaller margin of error. The first thing we'll have to do then is pick a sample size of students that we're surveying that's bigger than the original sample size. So right away, 40 and 40 are gone. A and B are gone. We need more students to make the sample size bigger and therefore margin error smaller. That's number one. Now, how do we choose between these two? Do we pick students from the undergraduate psychology degree program, or do we pick undergraduate students from all degree programs at the college? Well, the whole point of the study is to measure reading habits in psychology degree program students. So since we want to be consistent within the study, we have to pick, again, psychology degree students. So we're going to go with C. We don't go with D because we pick the undergraduate students in general from all degree programs. We're not using the same sample as we did in the first case. So this one is going to be C. This is quite the question. So right off the bat, we see this is a new topic. They've never talked about margin of error in the old SAT, so that's new. This is something I've seen in a few of these questions. They seem to really be focusing a lot more on survey, sample size, margin of error, proper ways to set up these types of trials and experiments. So this is definitely a direction they're moving in. So if you're not familiar with some statistics and arguments like this, certainly something to review. Again, the reading, and there's just so much to read here, and most of it is completely useless. I mean, the only really important thing here is that there's 75 undergraduate students from the psych degree program. The rest of this is essentially irrelevant until we get to the point where we want to get a smaller margin of error, and then we just, as I explained in the problem part of the video, you just pick the one that gets you the higher number of students and in the same program. So it's an interesting question. It's really long, but it's not exactly hard. Especially if you're familiar with the stats. If you're not as familiar with the stats and the theories behind margins of error and proper surveys and things like that, might be a little bit challenging. But overall, I don't think it's too bad.